I'm Jeffrey Brown, continuing our coverage here. And now I'm joined by Ann Patchett, author, novelist, and writer most recently of This is the Story of a Happy Marriage.
Yeah.
And also, we want to talk about your role in running Parnassus Bookstore in Nashville. But first, welcome to you.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
The book, because we talked about this once before, I remember is you telling me it's about you being a young person learning not just to be a writer, but to make a living as a writer.
Right,
Yeah?
that's part of it. It's a collection of essays, so it's about a bunch of different things, but things that I'm committed to, things that I feel married to. So a big part of it is about writing and just the work of being a writer, which I've been doing my whole life.
And something you realized as a young person.
Yeah, probably when I was 5. I was out to dinner.
When you were 5?
Yeah, I was out to dinner with somebody the other night, and they said, "When did you want to be a writer?" And I thought, it really was when I was a little kid. If I had been on your show, had you had the good sense to ask me to be on your show when I was 5 and you had not been born, I would have said...
I was 6 at the time.
Yeah, right.
It would have been
I would have told you that I wanted to be a writer.
Yeah. Do you remember what it was that, what were you reading or what was motivating that?
You know, honestly, I started first grade in 1969, which was a great year for truancy. We didn't go to school a lot in the 60s. My parents moved around. We just, we didn't get a lot done. And I didn't learn how to comfortably read and write until I was in 3rd grade.
Yeah.
So I really think that when I said to people when I was a little kid, I want to be a writer, what I was really saying is I'd really like to learn how to write.
But in the essays, you're also writing about a little later period where...
A little later than being 5?
Yes.
Yes.
But I'm just moving up in time here.
Okay.
But when yes, you're a writer, but you also have to learn to make a living.
Yes. Yeah, that was a big...
Because it's one thing to write, it's another thing to, okay, how do I survive?
So I got out of graduate school. I wanted to be a fiction writer. I wanted to write novels. I was very serious. I was very literary. I wasn't going to compromise my standards, which meant I wasn't going to make a living. So at first I tried to make a living as a teacher. And the problem with making a living as a teacher is your head's just full of other people's stories all day long, so you get home and you don't want to write. Then I decided I would be a waitress. So I left teaching college, I became a waitress, and my head was full of stories. I had great ideas, but then I'd get home and I would just fall flat on my face and go to sleep because I was so tired. So then my
I remember those years myself. It had some pleasures to it, I recall, because you'd be done at the end of the day.
And you got cash.
And you had cash.
I loved
cash
that.
on hand.
Cash.
I do remember that.
Yes,
yeah.
So it has a certain fairy story quality. You know, while I tried this job, that didn't work. But the third bowl of porridge that I got was freelance writing. And I started writing for magazines. I wrote for 17, Bridal Guide. I did fashion magazines. I wrote a lot of junk for a long time. And that was a great way to make a living so that then I could work on my serious novels.
Well, so what do you tell people now when they ask that question that you're asked all the time is sort of, how do I become, I guess, you?
How do you become me?
Yeah.
I think you just want to do it so much. And that was the thing that I really learned when I was waitressing. I had this moment that I thought, would it be okay if you were a waitress for the rest of your life and you wrote because you loved it, and you couldn't imagine doing anything else. And I
assuming you had the strength at the end of the night.
Assuming you had the strength to type at the end of the day. And I thought, yeah, I really could do that. If I never got published, if nothing worked out, I write because I love to write. And it has worked out, and it's been a great job. But I do think that you have to have that commitment of loving the work.
The other theme of the essays is writing itself. Now, the fiction that you write, can we say it's less personal because you're not a character?
Oh, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
These essays are about you.
Right.
Is that different for you? Do you like one over the other?
I'm a fiction writer.
Yeah.
No, I find nonfiction really easy and really fun, but I sort of feel like I'm cheating. I love.
Really? I mean, it just comes out too easily.
Yeah. And so why am I not a nonfiction writer? Wouldn't that make more sense?
Yeah,
why do I gravitate
life.
towards what's harder? I have a very happy life. I'm a happy person.
Yeah. But the fiction comes.
The fiction's tough because you know, with fiction you've got to do everything. You've got to make the trees and all the leaves, and you've got to make the sun come up, and you've got to figure out who's going to live and who's going to die. In nonfiction, you find the story, but the story is already there. You've got the characters, you've got the timeline, you've got the parameters, and then you write it up.
Tell me about your other hat as book owner, because I mean it's a little funny to sit here in Miami in the book fair, surrounded by thousands of book lovers, and say, "Oh, the book industry is falling apart, right? There's no readers, and there's nobody's buying or reading books anymore." And yet it is still.
Well, you know, books are fine.
Books are fine.
People are buying books and they're reading books. I, with my partner Karen Hayes, own Parnassus Books in Nashville, Tennessee. And we're doing great. You know, we're 3,000 square feet. I think that maybe the day of the 30,000 square foot mega store is dead, but people still really want a terrific, well-curated bookstore. Books and Books in Miami. Fabulous bookstore.
We talked to Mitchell Kaplan earlier.
Mitchell is really such a role model
for
us.
But what is it? What is the model, or what is it that people have come to realize works? Because for many, I mean, after all, we did lose a lot of independent bookstores.
We lost a lot of independent bookstores, but I don't think it was the fault of the booksellers. I mean, I don't think it's like they did something wrong and now we're doing something right. I think it's a cycle. You know, the little independents did a great job, and then they got bigger, and then somebody said, we can make a ton of money in this. Let's bring in Barnes and Nobles. Let's bring in Borders. Let's have a superstore. And then Amazon came up and said, now we're going to kill the superstore. Then we got all the way to Amazon, and you've lost your community. You've lost your story hour, your book readings, your author signings, your place to hang out. And people are starting to go, God, you know, what I miss is that little neighborhood community bookstore. And so I opened one of those.
You can ask the person, what should I read
and
next?
I remember what you read. You can tell me what you just read and loved, and I'll be able to say, this is what you should read next.
Do you see changes in what people are buying and what they're reading in the years you've been doing this?
Well, I've only been doing it for 3 years.
Yeah, okay. Well, in those 3 years.
In those 3 years, I got to tell you, because I'm an author and I don't work in the store and I come in and it's a big deal, people buy what I tell them to buy.
Yeah, really?
I walk in and somebody says, what should I buy? And I say, here, you should buy Hector Tobar's Deep Down Dark.
All right. Well, actually, I'm going to be talking to him later.
Oh, that's my favorite book of the year.
I started reading it. It's
my
a terrific
favorite book of the year.
Okay, well, it's our last minute. So, so I'm coming into the bookstore. Ann Patchett, what should I read?
Roz Chast, Can't We Talk About Something More Pleasant?
Yes.
I mean, that's an astonishing book. Yes. Myra Coleman's My Favorite Things. The idea of finding books with pictures is really exciting for me. Station 11, Are You Going to Interview Emily St. John Mandel? That's a terrific book. Lila, Marilyn Robinson, the third of her Gilead trilogy, but you don't have to have read the other two to enjoy Lila. Lila's my favorite of the three. And then, you know, there are also so many great books that maybe you miss. That's the best thing about having a bookstore. I loved Act One by Moss Hart. So I can sell Act One all day long.
Really?
You just can't believe it. Wow. And people think I'm a genius. You know, they come back and they're like, how have I lived all these years without Moss Hart?
And hold on to your wallet if you walk into Parnassus Bookstore, apparently. All right, Ann Patchett, thanks so much.
It's been great seeing you, Jeff. Thank you.
Book View Now, Miami Book Fair International, is brought to you by the John S. and James L. Knight Foundation, in association with PBS Digital Studios.
I just challenge you to go through the book fair and not find something that you're interested in.
One of the things I love about the book fair is it is a cornucopia of opportunity. You can literally find any kind of literary discipline you're interested in. You can see your favorite author, you can see somebody you've never heard of. But when they all get together, there's a synergy that begins to happen.
Knight Foundation, proud sponsor of PBS's coverage of the Miami Book Fair International.